Thank you. I welcome everybody back. Hope you had a great lunch out there, everyone. Moving on, Jenna, I'll hand back to you, please, to take us through. Carry on, please.
So the first group of activities we have is the financial matters. We've got 3 topics raised by submitters under financial matters. We don't have any recommendations associated with these topics.
And the first one is?
We've got the revenue and financing policy. You want to run through?
I'm under your direction. You take us through however you wish to do it.
What page, please?
So this is in the same report on page 82.
Thank you.
We've got the first topic, rates increase. We've got a number of submitters commenting on the rates increase.
So these are really just comments from each of the submitters. So these are things we need decision at this time.
So just refresh your memory here, councillors. There have been a number of recommendations and not recommendations, number of references back to the submitter. And if there are anything significant in there that you wish to change, that's your option. But as I understand it, the first active decision we would face is the Tutanui Stream one. Tutanui Stream Restoration Society, is that the first one we'd need to deal with?
Not part of the finance section, right?
Oh, sorry, no, I'm looking at the schedule here.
There's no recommendations or actions within the financial matters activity.
So
Are there any questions around the financial matters? Councillor Duncan?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm a bit slowly on how this is going to work, but I would like to bring up the submitters that mention the UAGC. Is this the right time to do that?
Yes, you could.
Thank you. So Federated Farmers particularly, they have a large discussion in their submission around how the UAGC affects particularly rural districts. And I wonder if I could somehow influence our financial team to look at how this could be rejigged to smooth the rates burden on our in this year where it's so difficult with farmers having negative cash flows, etc.
So you're referring to people like Tim Matthews 425.
Yes, indeed, and also Ian Strawn's
49.
49, is it? No.
Would you like to put any recommendation on?
Sorry, so the recommendation at the moment stands, or am I making a new recommendation?
To be the new recommendation?
Moving, in other words, am I?
Yeah.
So I believe that the our UAGC percentage is 21% at the moment. I'd like to see that raised to close. Well, the ceiling is 30%, so I would like to see a reasonable analysis of how we can raise that.
So I'm going to pass to Mr. Toombs in a minute, but when you change a UAGC, you have to deal with which individual matters rather than just moving a rate. So you would have to identify what charges are sitting within the general rate that you'd like to see moved to a UAGC. Or you could go down the path, in my opinion, of saying, raising it as a concern here, asking council staff to report back to you around what options could be considered. But having said that, Mr. Toombs might well say, Andy, you're out of order here.
I may think it, but I won't say it, Your Honour. No, bottom of page 87, I think might be a good place to start. We do comment upon the level of the UAGC. In our opinion, any tweaking to that would have to be part of the next annual plan, would have to be specifically consulted on, because it would be a significant change to what we have consulted on.
Thank you.
And also, just following on from the mayor's comments earlier, and probably won't have time to do it now, but page 134 of the draft long-term plan shows what services and activities are funded by the UAGC. And if you were suggesting that we increase the UAGC to decrease another rate, which is capital value based, we'd have to give that some long and hard thought, because that might end up in some of these activities having a surplus and others having a deficit, and we need to understand the logic behind that. That makes sense.
I'm thinking on this before I reply.
That's a
Councillor
further
Duncan?
question. I believe that in the last long-term plan, we reduced the UAGC. And my question at the time was, could we actually take it down again at the next annual plan? And the answer was no, that it had to be set in a long-term plan. Is that not? So you're saying that that's my recollection. Sorry, I may have recollected that wrongly. But so we could actually look at it at next annual plan.
My understanding.
Yes, and that would mean, especially if you're consulting on your annual plan, it means it would be a consultation on that aspect as part of the annual plan process.
I'm not sure, and I want to take some little bit of time and advice around this. But is it appropriate for somebody to submit to our long-term plan suggesting a change in our uniform annual general rate? And my answer would be probably yes. That is appropriate, and we should be in a position where we could make a decision. That's my initial reaction. But I would want to seek some opinions around the implications of that, and because it does alter every other rate. But I go back to my original comment, was you can't just assign a percentage increase. If you were going to do this, you can't just say, I want it moved to 27. You would have to identify and give rational basis as to why a particular service could be provided under a UAGC, that there was equal, in effect, equal benefit to all people. That's the whole, going back to the philosophy of rate setting. Councillor Delgado.
Just reflecting on when we did change the UAGC last time, we just went with $100 amount.
May I? Yeah, the changing of the UAGC last time wasn't done in isolation. There was a whole every rate was picked up and looked at. And we introduced differentials in the general rates, so it wasn't done in isolation. It's part of a big, wider process.
Yeah, and he's absolutely right. But the UAGC adjustment was under the provisions within largely the three watershed process.
And
So I'm carry on.
sorry, further question. So it's not just as simple as reviewing that decision.
No, perhaps I should have given questions or guidance back to the submitters here. And I should have said to them, what rate, what function within council ratings position could you see being moved to a UAGC rather than just an increase in the UAGC? And
So further to that, then can I request that staff look at raising the UAGC and how that would affect our rating position over the whole rating, over our whole rating system, with an eye on some changes in the next annual plan.
or whether the changes were now or in the annual plan. Mr. Toon.
Yeah, a couple of things there. If you wanted the UAGC to be increased in isolation of everything else, I'd be asking councillors to go back to the activities funded by the UAGC and tell me which ones of them they want to put more money into. If you wanted to increase the UAGC at the expense of reducing, say, the general rates, then that's a different discussion. So I don't know if you're looking at this in isolation or by tweaking the two, what we often call general rates. One CV, the general rate CV based, capital value based,
Mhm.
the UAGC is SUIP. If you're talking about transferring a CV to a SUIP or vice versa, that's a different discussion than just the increasing or decreasing the UAGC in isolation. So I'd like to need some clarity on what it is you're looking to
Does
achieve.
that then beg the question of whether we have a workshop?
I think that it is a valid question for council to consider, but I think that we will need to take some time to be able to give you advice, councillor.
Thank you.
But that advice should be forthcoming before we set our LTP process.
Thank you.
So it's a body of work. Councillor Loudon.
Through you, Chair, does Mr. Toombs have any idea of other similar districts who have a strong rural background? What the UAGC is?
I'm reluctant to compare UAGCs between different councils because even though we're all the same, we're all different as well. Different councils have different differentials for every rate almost. We all work in very different fields when it comes to the rating background. Even if all of our neighbours had a UAGC 20% different to ours, I wouldn't say we're necessarily wrong. You can't look at that just in isolation. You've really got to see what kind of activities they fund. We might be providing activities neighbours don't fund. Therefore, our UAGC would be automatically higher. So I'd be hesitant to compare rates and say comparing like with like.
I agree with Mr. Toombs. It's a very dangerous field to get into, but I don't think that's something we can handle right here, as Dave would say, right here, right now, because you first of all have to understand what is sitting within the general rate. You have to understand what is sitting within the UAGC, what potentially could shift, but one absolutely is balanced, affects the other, because the rating base still has to remain the same. But if you would like to move that council reconsider following advice, the matter of UAGC, you want to move that, because other councils may feel as though, no, we're not entered into this discussion. So I'd rather you put it as a motion for consideration.
I'll just make a comment. I think if you're going down that path, it's, when you do your funding reviews as to who you're allocating what charges to, that's the wider piece of work that I think Mr. Toombs is referring to, and that goes back to the fundamental of who's paying and whether it's capital value or land value, and there's a whole range of things that goes into there, and you're working backwards from who should pay for what services, which is not something that you could do on the fly, and normally that associates with a long-term plan. But if you was looking at some more minor shift, then you would consult on it in an annual plan. But again, you're not having the whole picture, and people could argue that you needed to look at that picture.
But in fairness to your submitter, we have gone through a process of altering the LTP previously. And the same principle should apply. So whether or not the report comes back to us to say that this isn't a process you should be doing, that's it. Anyway, up to you to move whether you want this, whether council has an appetite to look at this. At the moment, it's just your opinion based on the submitter.
What I'm trying to do here is actually ask for staff to look at this so that we can have the potential to change it in favour of a rural district that is suffering and that has previously borne the smoothing effects of using this as a tool before. So I think it would be great if I could request staff to do this body of work. I hope I'm not giving you too much work. I would like to move that. I would like to move, please, that we look at our use of the UAGC and how it can be used to smooth the rating effects on our rural sector.
So you're wishing,
That's fair enough.
you're wishing to move that councillors, following staff, advice,
Mm.
can look at the issue of the UAGC. Let's keep it fairly simple.
Yes, absolutely fine, thank you.
Can I just be clear, are you looking for this, for us to do this now?
If at all possible, I mean, as his worship has said, that we did actually use it in the last long-term plan. If it's not disadvantaging, I mean, it's right now that people are suffering, so I would like to see it happen as soon as possible.
Let's wait for your argument, please, after you may or may not
Oh,
have a second.
Speak to my
So
movement.
let's get the motion on the table
Mhm.
first. You have a question around process or?
Oh, no, I was just gonna talk to the issue, but I'll wait till it's on the table.
Yes, you can do.
I would suggest you say that council consider the level of the UAGC.
The level
part
of
of
UAGC.
and that would be fine in itself. So you're moving that, you're seconding it.
Seconding it for discussion.
Councillor Moore, you're seconding it. I think it's appropriate time to pause. I can see staff looking at each other left, right and centre. But in terms of process, there is a submission, a series of submissions on the table. And so there is the driver to look at this. Staff, your apprehension.
Well, I think technically it's something you'd have to consult on at that level because it would impact on just about every ratepayer if you're altering that. So the moment you do that, you're running the risk of getting out of sync. I'm not saying that you shouldn't consider it or you shouldn't look at it, but I do think that that would, if you was altering that, it would require consultation with with your whole public. I think if it was something like the forestry one, that's already on the table and that you'd be working on, maybe you could consider that because that was there, but one that effectively alters the whole, where that payment of where the shift of that requirement's going to go, you wouldn't have heard from the your own community. And I was just checking because I was thinking in my mind that somebody had indicated that it had been done before, but the chances before was as part of your consultation.
Yeah.
That was what I was checking as to whether it had been outside of that, but it appears that it was within that consultation program.
That was one of the ones that I was going to check because I actually share the concern that you're significantly changing the rating structure of the district. But I think what I would like to see is this discussion come back to this forum as part of the LTP, which then may be referred by way of a recommendation back to an annual plan.
That's good.
There is a motion on the table.
My recollection of the process last time was that definitely was brought to us as councillors that UOGC portion would be changed, but I don't believe the public was appraised of such. They were just given a rating increase at the time.
What I'll do is go back to first principles in terms of debate here. So you've moved, there's a seconder on the
Seconding
table,
for discussion.
Mhm.
and this is really about bringing it back for a discussion. So do you wish to speak to it?
Yes,
Or
thank
do you
you.
consider you have spoken?
Oh,
This is
keep
official
chatting.
now.
Yeah, I want to speak to this because I believe I did bring it up before quite some time ago, before the long-term plan consultation document was even put together, and I was offered a chocolate fish for my knowledge. So it's not like this hasn't had the opportunity to come into this process. I think that there is evidence out there to say that other rural districts have raised their UAGC to closer to the 30% ceiling, and that our rural district is definitely suffering at the moment, and we have used this as a tool to smooth the rating before. I see that we should be using it again. And in fact, it is a tool that can be used. And so why wouldn't we, in favour of our large rural district that supports the rest of us so well, generally. So yeah, I just see that we should be looking at every tool available to fairly rate our ratepayers across the district. So I'd like to see that come to us. Thank you.
One, wish to speak to it?
No, well, just, I just want to just get some clarity of that, of what's just been spoken about. So in my,
Okay.
yeah, so in my mind, we currently have a rating system where you're rated on the capital value of your property. Is,
Correct.
yes, so, is there any other types of any other ways that councils do it? Is there any other alternatives to that?
So the amount of money that we receive back in rates, just talking about rates for a second. First of all, there used to be a large number of councils that were land value-based rating. Virtually everybody now has moved to a capital base. So that's the common, but rates are only one fraction. There are user pays and all sorts of other ways of raising funds. So capital value is the common base. Question? You wish to speak to the motion? Go ahead. Now I'll go to Councillor Loudon next.
So I too have been very concerned about this. So I asked the question of staff in the middle of April, and I'd just like to relay what the response was. So if you remember, last time we changed the AUGC $100. So if a residential property with rates of 3,000 per annum would increase, if we increase the AUGC, that a residential property would go from 3,000 to 3,071, a 2.3% increase. A rural property with rates of 29,800 would decrease to 28,972. So a drop of close to 3%. So to me, it wasn't having the significant effect that we were wanting. And the reason why I'm concerned about playing with it more than the $100 is around the differentials that are used. Other councils have significant differentials on their rural versus residential base. We haven't gone down that path, which is a tool. However, then you are not reflecting the market, and you start playing around with a whole lot of things that are really difficult to control. And I respect our predecessors around this council that have not gone down that path. Yeah. However, I am happy for us to look at it so that everyone understands that.
You're speaking for the motion. Councillor Loudon.
I'm going to speak against the motion. I do sympathise with farmers and other businesses. They have struck an upward cycle on their capital value for their property as business falls off. And so they have this shortfall, and it is difficult for them. But there is a swings and roundabouts principle that it'll come back and change. I don't feel as though mucking around with the system is going to be anywhere near as effective as what people might think it might be, because it is going to shift and change all over the place. And I really can't see benefit in mucking around with our present system.
Councillor Wilson.
Speaking against the motion and 100% support of Councillor Loudon, I think he's 100% right. Also, I support Councillor Dalgety in her view, apart from the fact that she wants to go down this path to look at it, because it is a significant body of work. It is a large amount of work that you'll be asking staff to do to end up pretty much nowhere. And I really, that's why I support exactly what Councillor Loudon has said. And comparing us to other councils cannot be done and should not be done until you've fully understood their rating mechanisms. They're completely different to ours, and targeted rates and other such forms, which we largely don't use, have a far greater impact than mucking around with a few $100s here and there on your UAGC. So I'm speaking against this, and I do not believe it's a body of work we should be asking staff to go down.
I'm going to speak in favour. This isn't predetermining position here. This is actually wanting an explanation as much as anything else. And understanding what function could possibly be transferred to EAGC. However, having said that, I think the process will highlight the concerns of staff here. The difficulty in going down. So, but I think that it is a question that has been adequately raised previously to council decisions, and has certainly been raised by way of submission. So just a further explanation and decision around that, I think it will be appropriate. Carol, so Mrs. Gordon, in terms of the process that we went through last time that this happened, and it wasn't last year, it wasn't last LTP, it was
definitely through the 21-31 long-term plan, and there was a specific area which was proposed changes to our rating system. And in that, we said that one of the changes we propose is reducing the UAGC from $6.13 to $500 and increasing the general rate. And that went on to say this means the burden on residential ratepayers will be eased and more income will be collected from properties with higher values through the general rate.
Mr. Toombs.
I might just make a comment just to clarify some comments I made earlier about our rates. We collect roughly 30 million a year in rates. Roughly 2/3 of that is based on capital value and 1/3 is based on what we call SUIPs, which are dwellings. So all of us around this table would pay the same. If we had one house on the block, we'd all pay the same SUIP rate. But those with a higher CV capital value would pay more than the others. So I think the comment was made earlier that it's all based on capital value. Roughly 2/3 is based on capital value, and the other third is based, it's a flat rate.
Thank you. Go back, right, and reply.
Thank you. So I take on board everyone's comments. Thank you. I think the significant body of work that Councillor Wilson refers to has been done before, and obviously our staff's really good at it. So so I would really look forward to seeing that. And actually, Mrs. Gordon's reference to the fact that it was quite a specific area where we dropped that $110 in a way gives me hope that perhaps it is simply a matter of looking at that again and reversing that decision for the opposite effect. Yeah, I just think that given our large ratepayer base, we owe it to them to have a look at this as a tool that might be used and understand it better. That's why I'd like everyone to vote for Chris' motion. And so we can get on with the job. Thank you.
Put it to vote, those in favour? Those against? Sorry, please do not do that, you're on camera. That is important that that does not happen. Those against? 1, 2, 3. Are we back to 4 each?
Well, I don't-
Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm in favour. So we're just expecting now some further discussion and some advice around this matter. Right?
Thank you very much.
Can I just clarify that, though? You're not what, we have no chance of doing like a funding review.
No, I
which is-
understand that.
So what are you looking for?
So understanding it, the understanding of what functions are under a UAGC and what functions are under a capital rate. So a clear understanding of that and whether there is any appetite to transfer one of those functions. And if we did so, what would be the effect of it? And then the second parcel of work is the implications around whether, in your opinion, that should have gone out for a wider consultation as part of an LTP.
And one bit by
I can go back over this with you.
Oh, I understand what you're asking, but it's a matter of when you're wanting that back. If you're trying to
Well, certainly not.
include it for this rating year, or if you're heading to an annual plan.
The recommendation may well come back through staff that you are better off dealing with this in an annual plan, but you would need to be able to give the reason for that as part of that report. Right, can we move on, please? Councillor Wilson.
It's got a little bit of a concern there. If we look at the wording there, and that's maybe it's a point of order or clarification, I'm not sure. Council considers the level of UAGC as part of the long-term plan. Moved Duncan, seconded Maureen, carried. That would indicate to me that that body of work is going to be done before this long-term plan is signed off and agreed to. If that's the case, that's a problem.
I don't necessarily see that. I think that it's been raised as part of the LTP. And we should be able to be in a position to be able to say yes or no that it's not appropriate. And it may well not be appropriate on advice of staff.
And keywords consider. I hope so, because we're hopefully going to get to a position to sign up an LTP, which that may stifle us from doing. Would be my thinking.
It does. Councillor.
I didn't vote because I'm not sure. I'm not sure about, for me, I'm interested in, and I understand what's come through the submission process. Because I believe that there was a huge majority of our ratepayers that don't even understand the implications of these types of things. So we've got a big body of people that are sitting in a space that understand the implications of all of this type of rating. Joe Bloggs on the street does not necessarily know that. And I would say, and I haven't voted because I'm just not sure where I sit on it, because I think, yes, there's the opportunity for our community to put the submissions in there is good. But the other side of it is that the rest, this has an impact, could potentially have more impacts on everyone. And all those other people that don't necessarily have the understanding of it need to also be aware of it. So I don't know whether I was supposed to vote, or so I feel like it's good that to consider and look at it, but then again, is that going to be putting us into a space of?
I mean,
It's a disadvantage to me. It can be disadvantage anyone at any time.
I think the key point that I'm wanting to put across here is that they have raised it. It has been raised in the right way by submitters. It's been raised then by a councillor saying, could we look at it? And then we need to understand the implications of it and the implications of even looking at it. The implications of looking at it are probably higher than anything else. But that's what needs to come back to you in terms of advice. Move on. Any other questions relating to financial matters? Councillor Moore.
Just going back to Mr. Toombs's email earlier on about the depreciation. Does that come in here, or do we, where we make a decision on what to do? Because it could have an impact on our rates,
Yes, sir.
either status quo or lower.
I'll take some advice from staff here. I don't see an issue with dealing with it now under financial matters. No implications other than that.
No, I think it is a financial matter, and it does have an effect on the bottom line, and you've got to consider which way to treat them. So I think now's an appropriate time.
So we move back to an effect recommendation. Was it tied up in recommendation 4?
No.
No, that comes later. So Mr. Toombs, if you would like to take us through this, and then it'll be up to councillors to put a recommendation on the table. So if you could outline the situation again, please.
Okay, it might be easier with the workbook if you can, Keisha. Put it up for me, please. So basically what's happened is, since we went out for consultation, we've identified that our depreciation cost for next financial year will be 540 grand lower than the first thought. And generally speaking, there's 3 key financial aspects we consider in these things: a balanced budget requirement, rates increases, which we know we've got to keep affordable, and debt levels, and they all kind of feed off each other. So by reducing our depreciation by 540 grand, it makes our ability to have a balanced budget easier. Or we can have a reduced level of rates increase and have the same level of balanced budget status quo. If we do that though, our debt position worsens because depreciation is a non-cash expense. So you reduce rates, you reduce your cash coming in. You reduce depreciation, you don't reduce any cash impact at all, but you do have a better balanced budget situation. So what I've got up here, and I think it'll be simple. So the top 2 lines is financial years, and important just to remember row 3 waters is going to change all these figures after year 3 or 4. So we're sitting here with a 10-year long-term plan based on status quo. We think best guess is 3 waters is going to have a significant change to figures from year 5 onwards. Notwithstanding that, we've currently got row 7 rates based on the row 5, what we consulted on rates increases. So rates will do that. Surplus or deficit will do row 9. You can see 5 years of deficit in brackets figures, and then we get positive figures, and our closing debt. That's as where we currently are with the depreciation decrease. And because that depreciation decrease comes in, if we wanted to offset that depreciation with reduced rates, we get onto the green box. So you can see the 10.7 figure that's bolded in cell D13. That's roughly 1.8 lower than the
Can you just stop a minute? Is this going too fast for anyone? Are you all with it? Okay, thank you.
Well, all I've done in the green box is to reduce the rates in year 1 to offset the depreciation decrease. So that has 0 impact on our balanced budget, but it means rates comes down. Because rates is a cash income, what that means is row 23, our debt would increase because rates is going down by $500,000 a year.
So it increases by $500,000.
$500,000 a year, yeah. And you can see there's 2 red numbers there. That indicates that that's where we start exceeding our debt limits. So to mitigate that, if you can scroll down to the yellow box, please.
the red figures,
Yeah.
you're exceeding our debt limits.
Yeah.
But year 10 at 149,000
Yeah.
is higher than
Yeah,
row 9H.
yeah, the debt limit increases each year. Debt limit's based on our revenue.
And
So
there's more
revenue goes
revenue
up.
coming in
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
year 10.
Yeah.
That's why that's black.
So what I've done in year 11 to help smooth that, just for consideration, I said, okay, well, let's reduce the rates in year one, dollar for dollar for the depreciation decrease. If we do that and we want to maintain our debt position, we'd have to nudge up the rates increases in years 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you get a big 1.8 decrease this year, and then we budget for increases in years 3, 4, 5, and 6 to stay the same, basically. Now, what that means is, I know I'm going fast, I'll just take you through it and then come back to slow down. Under the yellow scenario, the figure just to the right of the yellow box is 88.6. That's your cumulative rate increase over the 10 years. And if you scroll up, please, Kezia. That's more than if we keep the rates as per the CD. So that gets back to what we spoke about earlier, the compounding impact of rates. You reduce year one, that compounds through the whole 10 years. So no easy answer to jump to, but it does show that you can reduce rates in year one to maintain your balanced budget situation, but you run the risk of having to have higher rates in future years and or higher debt in future years.
Councillor Moore.
Well, you've gone so fast, I've got to catch
Yeah,
up.
I want to take you through the whole
Yeah,
journey first and then come back.
If we left it at 12 point, at our current rate position, what's the impact?
12.5.
Yeah.
Rod,
With the lower so it doesn't impact the rates going forward? Does it bring them down? You know, you're saying if you make it 10.7,
yeah.
your cumulative rates are higher over 10 years. But if you left it at 12.5%,
Yeah.
does the cumulative rates come down over 10 years?
If you leave the rates as is,
Yeah.
then that's what we consulted on, row 5.
No, but you've got 500. Oh, your debt's come down.
Yeah, because depreciation is non-cash.
Yeah.
So all it does is make your balanced budget look better.
Yeah.
But your cash position is exactly the same.
Councillor Dalgety, Councillor Wong, Councillor Dalgety and Councillor Sharlin. Councillor Dalgety.
Oh, I want a promotion on the floor, so I want to take questions first.
I'll take a motion.
I'd recommend that the maximum allowable decrease in rates, 10.7, I believe it is adopted. Is that, and can please change the wording accordingly.
First of all, I'll look to see if there is a seconder to that before I take further questions. Are you wishing to second it? And just before you speak, I just want to clear up some other questions. Councillor Wong, Councillor Sharlin, Councillor Wong.
Can I ask through the chair, Mr. Toombs, we see this question? Did you do any other figures for the rates?
No, that's just a starting point. It's easy enough for me to change the figures in the dark cells to see the impact.
Thank you.
Councillor Sharlin.
Just Mr. Sorry, I asked Mr. Toombs, is there any risk with the unknown thing about the three waters?
Yes, whenever there's uncertainty, there's risk, and there's an awful lot of uncertainty, yes. Timing and what it's going to end up looking like. Just for your information, if I may, 3 years ago, when we started having these discussions under the old Three Waters label, we were going to lose all of our Three Waters assets, income and expenditure, and get all of our Three Water related debt repaid to us, and that would have made us debt neutral. But we would have been having what we call stranded overheads of 1.5 to 2 million a year. And there would have been other funding coming. There's a lot of risk because there's so much uncertainty, yes.
A question from me in terms of the aggregation of depreciation funding. So for instance, in theory, the depreciation is against a particular asset class. You know, how what we're talking about one piece of class, what's the wider class here?
The buildings.
Buildings.
Yeah, yeah.
So the depreciation money, it's spent effectively on bringing buildings back to the state that they should be in.
Yeah, or creating a reserve for the asset to be replaced, which is the case here, yeah.
Councillor Morn.
Is there any, what buildings are they and are they surplus to requirements? Could we sell them?
No, the short answer.
Are they what, are they
the-
surplus to requirement? First
Well, you're in
question.
one now.
You're in one now.
There's two main buildings, this building and the King Street depot.
So the point I'm making about aggregation is that it's not specifically to those buildings as a class, it's also spread beyond other buildings.
Yeah.
Right, that'll let you speak to your motion.
I think that it is a challenging time for many of our ratepayers at the moment. And so I would like to do our utmost to reduce where we're at right in the here and now. And I believe the Three Waters equation will come through in 3 years' time. And there's a whole lot of things that will affect those budgeted figures going through. But I'm would like the here and now to give the maximum relief we can to our ratepayers.
The speakers, sorry, do you wish to make a point?
I do, if you could put the spreadsheet up, please, again, Kezia. Just the recommendation needs to say, the green box or the yellow box, it's all well and good bringing down year one. Do you wish the other years to stay as per the LTP or as per the yellow figures? I think at the risk of preempting anything, you'll need to change the future years' rates. Otherwise, we're going to have a long-term plan with, we can't excess debt.
Yeah, so perhaps we take a minute and even adjourn to make sure that the motion clearly reflects the position. So,
Can you put the spreadsheet up? So what are the current?
any other questions that we need to make sure that we can answer and work out during the adjournment?
I just want to see what the top line, that's a long-term plan rates up the top. So it's the ones highlighted.
Yeah, I'd just like to provide some sort of reality check. When people deliver a long-term plan draft, they tend to historically always say that rates are going to drop. The reality is more new work comes in, whether by council direction or government legislation. So, you know, you always have some degree of suspicion about the future being uncertain. But I'll adjourn for 10 minutes while we make sure that there's very clear definition around what you're actually asking.
this.
Thank you for those online. We apologise that but it is we need to be very, very clear around what motions are proposed and the effect of them. I'll go to Mr. Toombs. Are you confident that you understand the motion that has been put by?
Yes.
Right, and you understand?
Yes, I think so.
We'll go back. Now, would you like to speak to it? We'll start back on first principles here.
Oh, let's speak again.
I just think it may be easier in terms of, just can you
No
just
problem.
repeat?
So just I want to recognise that it is very tough out in our district out there at the moment with the cost of living increases that everyone is experiencing. And yeah, I want to do our utmost to keep our rating burden as low as we can. And this is an opportunity to do so. And I want to take advantage of that.
Thank you. We have one speaker for Councillor Duncan. Your first hand up, you wish to speak to it.
Yes, I'd like to speak in support of this also, for all the reasons that Councillor Dalgety has also outlined. And also saying that although this will increase potentially some burden going forward, it has been responsibly recognised in Mr. Toombs's figures. So I have confidence in that. And I also see the uncertainty going forward for all councils. And so I agree with Councillor Dalgety that we should take this as a win and go forward as best we can.
Okay, other speakers are Councillor Loudon, followed by Councillor Wong, Councillor
I
Loudon.
have a question on Mr. Toombs. Councillor Dalgety said that this will decrease our rating burden. Is that just for 1 year or over a 10-year long-term plan? How will it affect the rating burden?
If I can get the spreadsheet put back up again, please. Over 10 years, so I've referred to column O. Column O shows that for the current figures, using 12.5, not changing any rate increases as per the consulted on LTP, the cumulative figure over 10 years is 87.9. By doing what we're suggesting, that's the yellow box, the figures change in 5 of the years, which gives us a total over the 10 years of 88.6. So slightly higher overall, but you could argue a smoother profile.
Take other speakers. Councillor Wong,
Could I move an amendment to
you can move an amendment.
that the rates increase be reduced to a 11.5%. I support everything that Councillor Dalgety and Councillor Duncan have brought to the discussion, but also take on the comment that Councillor Pikitiora made about future rates, and in this case here, with the 10.7% increase, years 3, 4, and 5 increases. So we're taking short-term gain for pain in the next 3 more years, and I'd like to balance that having a piece of good news for the ratepayers, but hopefully it spreads it further on. So that's why I wouldn't quite take the full.
So you're wishing to move an amendment that 10.7
Become 11.5.
became 11.5. What I would ask is whether there is a second to that, and then if there is, then I will ask them to do the remodelling so that you can effectively vote on it from a knowing position. Are you seconding it?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that.
Happy to second it. In that case, to discuss the amendment clearly, and I will take it as amendment, it is not strictly against the motion. It's an amendment to it. So it is, I accept the amendment and I accept the seconded. So I'll ask for an adjournment for 5 minutes please, if we can act on this reasonably quickly, so you at least understand the implications of the amendment. Thank you. Welcome back. It's appropriate that the council take time to look at and understand the amendment. We've got a mover and a seconder. If we can have the data brought up in front of us for councillors to understand.
Just go to, why not sit there and talk?
Yep.
Okay, so the starting point was councillor Delgetty was suggesting 10.7 in year one. And then to maintain the status quo, we've been looking at these rate increases in years 3, 4, 5 and 6, 12, 12, 9.4 and 9. The amendment would state that the 10.7 becomes 11.5. The 2 first years of 12 go back to 11.6, 11.4, and years 5 and 6 I think are the same. Importantly over here, the amendment would give us over 10 years 88.4. The initial amendment was 88.6. Over 10 years, not a great deal of difference, but smoother under the amendment.
Right, you've got the data in front of you. You wish to speak to it?
It's just taking less gain now for a better years 3, 4 and 5, where it's not up 12% rates increase, because we have to go over the same thing again then.
Just a question before I come to you, councillor Loudon, and the reflection, Mr. Toombs, on debt position. Where are you? There.
So, yeah, so I've modelled these, the boxes in yellow, for want of a better word, to make us pretty much end up at the same debt position in year 10 as we would be if we didn't decrease the rates.
Thank you. Looking for speakers to the motion. To the amendment, sorry.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll
go-
speak.
Sorry, councillor Loudon had his hand up first. Councillor Loudon.
Well, just a question about the debt, like, can you bring the, chart back up?
The spreadsheet back up.
In the green box, we had 2 years of red debt, basically over our limits, whereas that is gone in the yellow box.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah, if you scroll down, please, Keith, underneath the yellow box. You can see there are debt limits. Now, we do have a certain amount of flexibility with them, but essentially that's what we consulted on, them debt limits. So you can see that in the green box, we're marginally over our stated debt limits.
That in itself is quite a reasonable position. And so I ask that speakers, councillor Maughan.
Yeah, I'll speak for the amendment. I think we have had a bit of a gain. We're passing on some to the ratepayer and keeping some for future. So I think it's a good position to be in, to be able to offer some rates relief, but also smooth that over a 10-year period. So that's why I'm voting for this motion.
Other speakers? Councillor Lambert.
I'll speak against the motion. I prefer the original one. I think we can take what relief we can take now, we should take. Hopefully, we're at the low point of the economic cycle, and then by the time we start having to consider rate rises, we could be financially better off. So I know it's only a small amount, but I still think I'd like to see us take the most relief we can at this point.
Two speakers for, one against. Other speakers? I'll speak in favour of the amendment. I take on board the comments around the hurt that is going on now. However, just in itself, being able to go back and project that we will be under debt limits, I think in the future, the debt limit will be challenging to us. We have some very major programs, and we have already put in place some suggestions around potential capital debt around recycling and our position on Martin Main Street. So I would support the amendment. It's 2 for, 2 against. By my record, councillor Loudon.
I support the amendment.
Wish to speak to it?
Well, I think Jeff's green tea is obviously helpful. To Jeff's thinking.
Any other speakers against? Put it to the, do you wish to reply?
I take fully on board what councillor Lambert and Sidoti and Ivan have said. But I think we need to put on the hat of not being landowners, but being councillors of the whole Renty district, but I was this is a democratic process, so vote how you how you believe. Thank you.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour of the amendment? Amendment is carried. Thank you. We'll go back to the motion, and the motion came from councillor Dalgety. You've already spoken to it, and how many others have spoken to it? Councillor Duncan, you spoke to it. Sorry.
She seconded.
Yeah, but she also spoke to it.
Just a question, doesn't that mean the amendment becomes a motion?
Yes, yeah.
So why are we having to vote on the original motion?
So, yeah, but I go back to the person who moved the original motion.
It's a substantive motion now.
Becomes a substantive motion. Any other speakers to it? No. Okay, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against, motion is carried. Thank you very much. Move back to any other financial matters under the section. Right, thank you. The next section, roading,
Yes.
and there were some discussions and submissions around roading differential. Is there anything else you wish to highlight?
No, we don't actually have any recommendations associated with voting currently, so we can work through it how you wish.
Is there anybody wishing to move any recommendations under roading? No? Take us through to the next session of this section.
The next section is Three Waters. There's 4 topics within the section, again with no recommendations associated with them.
Sorry, topic, which number?
Three Waters, page 94.
94. I'm just wondering whether there was anybody that wanted to go back to motorhome or Tara Bridge, all those sorts of things. I think they've been fairly well answered, but is anybody else there? Councillor Wong.
Just the effluent dump, I see, water under the roading.
So in page and submission number?
91.
91 topic A.
Submitter, number 412. I'm curious to see, is there any progress made, was that,
You're wanting effectively an update.
yes, please.
It was put before, the staff response was absolutely correct. It was put to the regional voting position and it hasn't changed, that hasn't changed.
What date was that? Put to the roading? How long ago was that?
Within the last 2 to 3 months,
I think, thank you.
so it's current.
Just a question, please.
Sure.
So, in terms of process, is that a joint submission to Waka Kotahi with Horizons to get these things through, or how does that happen in terms of their input?
Well, actually, interesting you raised that because the minister made some announcements the other day that says effectively the regional position on roading will be made by a process that NZTA controls. So that is what he is suggesting or whether he's enacted it right now or he's suggesting in the future. An announcement came out the other day that was certainly the intention. Previously and currently, as I believe, it's up to the Horizons regional grouping to make submissions to this, and it's not listed. Next one, you want to take us through?
So are we skipping over Three Waters?
Page
Page 94.
94, yep. Any recommendations there?
No.
None? Anything else there? We're certainly in a state of still uncertainty and flux there. Next one.
The next one is rubbish and recycling on page 97. We've got 3 topics there, none of which have recommendations.
Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Just with regard to volume 4, page 5, 301, there's also 392 and 412, the submission numbers. They all refer to the rubbish in the Oanaiti community. I see officer comments that we do not supply any rubbish or collection or service. And that there's no thoughts to changing that. However, I just wonder where our responsibility as the district council comes in when we have a community such as that who are obviously needing support in this area and how we could address it.
The issue there, first of all, Shirley Russell doesn't quite live in Orangaiti, does she? She's north of Orangaiti. So she would never be on a collection base, being several k's out of Orangaiti. But the issue that behind this is a concern over the old, what used to be the state highway. And the other issue raised by Mr. Parks, his submission, relates to private properties. And we have no effective control under private property unless there is a fire or hygiene risk. So I believe the staff responses personally are adequate. They are frustrating for us as an organisation. And we have cleaned up the old Orangaiti section of that state highway several times, effectively at our cost. It's not a desirable situation. Staff, and I see Arno's online, who'll be well aware of this situation, and Johan was online earlier. It is a frustration to us. Arno, do you wish to add any further to that conversation?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I just have to agree with what you've been saying. I think the problem there is an eyesore, and we're all aware of it, but it is a very difficult and complex one to resolve. So we'll keep going at it.
Thank you. Are you happy we move on?
Thank you.
Carry on, please.
The next group of activities is parks and reserves on page 98.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, can I go back to the waste disposal? I'm just trying to look for the submission, and so I could give you a submission number. But one submitter came up with the thought of keeping the transfer stations open longer.
Yes, and that was that submission from memory was related back to a submission to say, don't do waste collection, keep the transfer stations open for longer, from my memory.
Yeah. So I don't know, I would like to see some work done on the feasibility of this, especially even the recycling. I brought it up probably in the annual plan about at least the recycling in Martin turned around so people could put their empty bottles in there 24/7. Like they do in other communities. I don't know whether given that submission that gives the opportunity to move a recommendation that be at least looked into.
Ask for some direction here from staff. I think that could be a request that comes straight to council, rather than the long-term plan position.
Your Worship, just wondering if that could be a direct matter that has arisen and is taken through to assets and infrastructure for a request. That we could then have on our assets and infrastructure meeting and keep a closer eye on for follow-up for response from Arno and that team might be probably a faster way to actually address that.
I'm all for that. So
So
I'll take that advice.
it may mean that through staff, we alter the response back to that submitter with regard to that. Can that happen?
Yes, can I?
I can find this submission number.
Yeah, or just clarity on what you're wanting then, is it just the Martin one or is it a crop or?
No, for
It's related.
to be straight to the point, Martin one.
Yeah, submission relates to Martin, so it must go back in that vein.
Found it again, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll carry on. Please.
Questions?
Where do you want us to go next?
Questions?
Question, sorry, councillor.
Am I able to make a comment?
Yeah,
So I appreciate that, and I think that submitter, to do with this issue of, potentially looking at keeping the Martin Finchley station open. I'd just like to say that I'm sure the Taihape residents potentially, would also welcome something like that, even though I know that's for Martin.
maybe we can widen that conversation out. Yeah, but the response to the submitter must be back to that submission.
Yeah.
And so the next group of activities, parks and reserves on page 98. We've got 4 topics here with 1 recommendation associated with topic 22, the Tutanui Reservoir.
Shall we deal with the Tutanui Reservoir 1? This is the Stream Restoration Society, BNC Dams, that's the one. And just like to disclose, I am a volunteer in this group. I have nothing to do with the decisions over what they do and when they do it. But I'm an active volunteer. I don't think that I'm conflicted in this process, but I will acknowledge that, like many other projects right around the district, I volunteer. Councillor Wilson.
Go straight to recommendation, Chair, if I may.
Appreciate that.
I would move that, that council continues to support, the Tutanui Restoration Stream Society, Martin BNC's dams for the funding amount of $10,000 per annum.
You wish, Councillor Hero, you had your hand up first.
Yes.
You wishing to
I'll second.
leave it question, or were you wishing to second?
Support, yes.
Were you, is it,
I was wanting to second, yeah.
well, you've been beaten to the punch.
Yeah.
You wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, very, very quickly. Actually, I actually believe it's a shame that we can't fund this group for actually more, given the amount of work that they do, which is considerably more that they fund privately amongst themselves, to deliver back. So it's a shame we can't fund more. And given our current climate and some of the earlier discussions, I'm not going to suggest that we do, but certainly supporting them to this rather small amount is only a token gesture. So I would urge councillors to support it.
To save some time here, councillors, the 2 or 3 people are saying they wish to speak in support. Is there anybody wishing to speak against this? In terms of brevity and process, are you happy, councillors, if I put it to the vote and we record that a number of people have wished to speak in support?
I just had a
Councillor,
question. The last funding round was for 3 years, years 1 to 3. And just clarifying that this is for 10 years for the whole length of the long-term plan.
so this would be in place. This would be in place for the long-term plan.
For 10 years, so 10 years, 10.
Until the long-term plan was reviewed. So it would sit,
right.
it would sit effectively there as a guarantee for 3 years. You don't presumably want right of reply to your right of reply, that was only you. Put it to the vote, those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you, next one.
Can I suggest that should be put as a unanimous?
Yeah, okay. Was there anybody want to vote against that? No, it can be recorded as such, thank you. Next one. Is that the one with regard to Bulls and District?
If you'd like to move on to the next group of activities.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's community. So we do have a few recommendations associated with this group. The first one's topic 32, which is Build Commemorative Centre.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor.
I'm just say that we're jumping past topic 24. It's just with regards to that, the Taihape playground.
Okay.
And
Yep.
it would appear difficulty in getting some progress there. Charlotte submitted 419. Can we get updated where that's at and what's that's holding that back?
Can we take that just as an action requirement?
Right.
Not wanting to move a motion to it?
Not necessarily. Yeah, not necessarily, depending on where it's at.
I'm going and giving up that.
We'll give it up.
Yes.
Galen, so when would you appreciate that update? Next council meeting or? Give it now,
I can
or
give
do you
a
want to do it
verbal
now?
one now.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
Yes, we have been communicating with the group and we've just, I've gone back to them. They came to the Memorial Park Youth Group meeting last week, the week before. And I've gone back to them with dates to arrange another meeting.
In hand, okay, thank you very much. Sorry.
Sorry, I shouldn't have jumped ahead and skipped some of these other sections.
Thank you.
Next one that councillors wish to raise. I'm at your direction, councillors. If not, I will go through to for the Bulls and District Historical Society in the sections. Councillor Hero.
So just a question, in the recommendations that have been given by officers, there'll be, for a number of these things, they will come back to those submitters with a.
Yeah, we're required, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, we're required to respond to submissions. You can aggregate those submissions and provide a general response that includes them, but that is a requirement. Fair comment?
Yes.
Thank
Yep.
you.
So they all, and you're right, a lot of them are aggregated, so they'll include the officer comment that you see here. Where a deliberate decision's been made, that'll be referred to as well.
Councillor Wong.
The submission from Mary Hagee of the Taipei Netball Centre. I've read the officer analysis and there's communication going through.
It's page 105. Yeah.
105 years. Is there some comment from maybe Mr. Bernardi, Nadi, or someone that wishes to enlighten us, or perhaps was it complete here, or maybe chief executive?
Do you comment?
So I think when it is part of the verbal submission, we agreed that a report would also go to the assets and infrastructure, if I recall that correctly. But that's the information that I have found out to date. So still looking into some options for that.
So is that,
That's fine, yeah.
does that satisfy you?
Yeah, sure. That's fine.
Topic 31, RNIT tennis courts, anything there? No. Topic 32 is the Bulls Commemorative Centre. So this is the one around where council does or does not purchase materials required for the Bulls District to replace the roof. I'll take questions, but it'd be useful to have a motion on the floor because it's a decision one way or the other. Councillor Rokawa.
I'd like to move the recommendation that council does purchase materials required for the Bulls and Districts Historical Society to replace the roof of the Bulls Commemorative Centre.
Can the council minutes please note that Councillor Sharland has declared his conflict of interest with regard to this now. Looking for a seconder to that.
The question,
Question I take.
who owns the building that we're talking about?
So it's a council building under Reserves Act leased back to long term at a peppercorn rental to the museum, as I understand it. Is that
That's correct.
We're the owners.
We're the owners. I'll ask a question of staff in terms of that lease. Was there a maintenance clause within the document, and does that maintenance go beyond pure maintenance to a structural component?
Council is responsible for the structural component and the Bulls Museum Society for the maintenance. And it specifically mentions the roof. If there was minor maintenance to the roof, that would be the responsibility of the Museum Society. But if it was a full replacement, it's council's responsibility.
So clarifying that lease says minor maintenance repair
Yes,
is their responsibility.
correct.
But replacement would be a council function.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Duncan, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Duncan.
So on page 106 again, just at that summary, it says to undertake the work to fix the roof. So that doesn't refer to a full replacement. I'm just wondering in that case, so the first quote of 39,000, that includes the removal and replacement, does it? So we are talking about a replacement, not a fix. So that's just a matter of the wording's not right.
Mr. Sharland, Councillor Sharland, whereas you cannot vote, I am happy if there is information that you have that can enlighten us. I'm quite happy for that conversation to happen.
Your worship, with that submission, we did show you photos of the condition of the roof, and it requires replacement.
I think the fix of the roof is replacing it. It's not fixing it. What's
But just subject to that, so if I'm allowed, what I've said in the submission is that if the council supplied materials, we'd be quite happy as a community project to put the roof on ourselves.
And it's been, that sounds like there's been an offer for labour, etc. But Councillor Wilson, question.
Yes, two things. Who has actually determined that the roof needs replacing?
The guy that inspected the roof.
So who's that?
You got the quote from that submission?
Yeah, I can see that on
Roofing guy from
the
Whanganui.
quotes, but I'm only looking at the officer, for the summary of submissions, not actually
Yeah,
the.
there's two extra guys that had a look at it and then took all those photos and said it is actually.
Okay, so secondly to that, there's two numbers sitting in here in the summary of the submissions.
Yep.
Which is the number?
One's for replacement, or the other's buying the materials. Isn't that thing that the second quote provides 21,000?
Yes, I can see that, but there's nothing up there in the recommendation. There's no number.
Materials.
So it's only purchasing materials and not fixing.
Okay, so we can assume that the number we're referring to is $21,152.09.
Be clear if that was put in.
Yeah, not clear if it was not, so we know
That's
the
what I'm
numbers
trying
we're
to
dealing
get
with. That's the point that I'm making. Thank you.
Again, we should be able to get those materials cheaper than that too.
Well, you.
Just, I'd really like someone to put something on the table as a motion.
Can,
Sorry.
yes.
Yes, you have. My apologies. So what I mean is I need a second to that, otherwise we don't have a motion.
Can I amend that?
It's your motion. There's nothing-
Yes, so can I add that the council does purchase materials to the amount of 21,152.09.
I appreciate your accuracy.
How can I put in that this is we're gonna purchase this, God, I might be talking against myself, and be sure that the Bulls Centre will actually put the stuff up and not let it.
So the way that you would do that is on the condition that the work is
Completed by the.
completed.
Thank you.
We still haven't got a second. Councillor, are you wishing a second?
Just a question, where does the liability sit if council purchases the materials for a council building and Bull Strike Society fixes the materials? Where does the liability sit if it doesn't work? If it leaks?
Mr. Chief Executive.
I might have to get up on the bill. I guess it would be done under direction from one of Arno's team or one of the asset teams to ensure that it's appropriately placed there.
That's just the risk that you.
And and will our, we would be requiring it to be, placed in an appropriate manner. And if it wasn't, we would be instructing to replace it.
I think that's your
Would it be a
answer.
consented item? or-
Yes.
I don't think it's consent or replacement.
I'm hoping you're prepared to second.
Yeah, I am, but I have got a question first, because there is if we provide the materials, I guess it's up to the Falls Historical Commemorative Centre to provide their own health and safety and all that sort of stuff. I don't want any liability to come back to council.
But that's not uncommon with a lot of these council community initiatives, that responsibility stays with the people that are actually doing the work.
I'll second.
So I think councillor Loudon indicated at the end of the submission. So we have a mover, we have a seconder. Have we got correct wording? I think we're getting the words there. Councillor, do you wish to speak to your motion?
No, thank you. It says it all. Thank
It
you.
says it all. Looking for speakers to the motion. Councillor Wong.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Um,
Scared of that.
Yeah, I just, the, letter from the, Martin, or the submission, on page 215 of the, submission of the volume 4, the Historic Society, on completion of the roof, can continue with the sourcing of funding to complete the project. I'm curious to know if there was any funding sought for the roofing materials from any other source.
Do we have an answer to that?
I can answer that because we've applied for funding before and the results come back that it's a council building, it's council responsibility.
And was this in this case as well?
Yeah, because again, a council building, we haven't actually applied, but I would imagine we get the same answer.
Yeah, speaking for the motion.
Yes.
Supporting it because it is a council-owned building. As a responsible landlord, we should be making sure our buildings are standard and safe for the occupants, despite how much they pay for their tenancy.
Thank you, sort of, thank you. Other speakers, councillor Dalgety, councillor Lambert, councillor Dalgety.
Speaking in favour of the motion, this is in our lease. It's very hard to not abide by a lease we've already agreed to.
So 3 speakers in favour, are you speaking against?
No, I was going to be in favour as well.
Any speakers against? Right, a reply,
No, thank you.
put it to the vote, those in favour? Those against, carried, thank you very much. So that moves us to housing. Topic there. Oh, sorry.
33, so going to pay.
Oh, yes, sorry, my apologies. This is the active Jim. Jim.
What's that, Tom?
I've got the names right of everybody so far. Questions around this? This is the $50,000 for building operations, the pool area of the building, if required, and a waiver of consent fees. Questions, councillor Wilson.
I'd like to go straight to recommendation so that we can be addressing this directly
Happy with
as
that?
per the agenda.
Yeah, happy with that.
My recommendation is, I would suggest that council does not contribute up to $50,000 supporting alterations to the pool. area of the building, if required, and waive building consent fees to cover the courtyard between the pool and the offices and Rangatiki Active Pool.
Looking for a seconder to that. You're wishing a second? Right, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I do, because this absolutely directly comes into contact with our earlier discussions this morning about the overall matter of the pool. And we have to take a look at it from a much, much higher point of view as to what work may or may not be required in that space to make it more user friendly, make it more attractive. There's a huge number of things and questions that have to be asked. For those of you that don't know the area, we walk up a pathway, we've got the Rangatiki Active Gym on one side, and we've got the pool on the other side. They're effectively the same building. So we've already had, so to me, it would be silly to be spending $50,000 on what may or may not work with the overall picture of possibly a future design in that pool space. We've already instructed the staff to come back to us with a proposal and to look at the space in its entirety. So again, great initiative, love to support, but I think it's too early to commit money to it without actually understanding what the greater issues are with regards to that space.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Dalgety.
I'll speak in favour of the motion and agree with councillor Wilson's
Yeah, I'll speak in favour and that's it.
3 speakers in favour. Are there any speakers against? Is there anything further you wish to add?
Yeah, I did just want to clarify, and it's further to what councillor Wilson says, where we've got the building of alterations to the pool area if required. And under a building consent, there would be requirements like fire and accessibility. So there is definitely work that would be required.
If you wish to write a reply, put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. That takes us through to topic 34, housing.
No recommendations with that topic.
Is there any recommendation motion that councillors wish to put forward with regard to housing? No. Public toilets.
There is a recommendation with this one.
Yeah, I know. The recommendation is that council does or does not consider toilet amenities at Walker Park pools. Councillor Wilson.
Happy to move straight to a recommendation if I may as well on this one.
And what's your recommendation?
My recommendation would be that we consider, because I think consider is the word. And again, without fully understanding what may or may not be involved in having public toilets in that space, I don't see that we can necessarily write it off. It may be that it is not plausible, it's not feasible, and it may come to a huge amount of money. But I think we're being asked to consider it. And I think it's fair to consider. That does not mean that we would necessarily have to do. Once again, would be asking for more information to come back to us to see if it is or not possible.
Before I look for a seconder to this, in terms of staff, could this be a consideration outside of the LTP, or would it need, because it's a submission to the LTP, be a direct response and decision to this LTP? In other words, do you consider it such a lesser matter that it could be dealt with under existing
I
council?
think it could be dealt with, but I mean, if you accept the recommendation as proposed, it'll mean that we'll work on it.
Yeah.
It's just a simple way rather than bringing another report to council.
Can I just clarify that the recommendation does not say anything about the LTP? I'm purely using the words that's up there. The council does consider toilet amenities at Walker Park and Bulls. That could be an ongoing piece of work.
The problem is that this is a deliberation meeting around the LTP. Therefore, you assume it as part of that deliberation process because you're answering a submission to it. So that's the limitation around that. What I'm saying is that probably would need to be considered as part of an LTP. Toilets tend to run for some ungodly reason, they run at more than the cost of the house. and
Yes.
never been able to understand it. But our history is that toilets are very expensive animals. So I think it has to be dealt with as part of this LTP. So for us to consider as part of this LTP, we would need to have some consideration. It'd be like the other one where you take back. But I'll look for a seconder. So you're wishing, and you didn't submit on this?
No.
Happy to accept your Councillor Sharon's seconding. Questions?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah.
My question would be, when this first came, I remember being part around the table when this initially came up. My question would be, what's changed?
It's in that officer analysis, I'm guessing, is that the toilets that were in that area have now been, are now no longer able to be used because they didn't meet the criteria, and the council no longer owns that block, it must have sold it off.
Just clarification, that's a separate block. So
Yeah, it's a
there's-
separate block, but they were.
Originally it was because of the proximity to the toilet block at Rangatiki Junction, which we still do have. But at that time, there was discussion around you have to cross the busy highway. It is still quite a distance. And so the submission has come back again, so that's why we've brought it back to council for consideration.
I think that, first of all, I think that it does have to be dealt with by way of submission to this LTP. It would be an expensive animal. We haven't got a cost estimate in front of us. We haven't got a proximity. I think there does need to be a little bit further work on this. So the consideration is probably the right word, but I don't think we're going to be in a position to deal with it today. But however, we need to make sure that this is dealt with by way of the motion that you're putting forward. So I'll go back to you, Councillor Wilson. Do you wish to speak to it?
Only to say that I think it should be considered, nothing more than that. I can appreciate everything that you're saying, that it would be something that would need to be costed and funded. But we had an earlier conversation about some UAGCs. We're in exactly the same boat. If it's got to come back, it's got to come back. If it floats, it floats. If it sinks, it sinks. But let's have the consideration.
Any other speakers to the motion?
Yeah, your worship, that park does seem to get used a hell of a lot, and there's always people come to the museum asking where the toilets are in Bulls. Honestly, they do.
Two speakers in support. Any other speakers? No, put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. So that comes back to be still dealt with under this LTP process. Thank you. High Happy Wellness Project topic 36. And there's no action required.
No recommendations.
Anything from councillors there? Topic, sorry, Councillor Duncan.
I do wonder if it's worth putting in a movement around agreeing with the taking over the I'm just trying to find the the wording around support for maintenance of the grounds. I think that's the main request of this from council.
Right. And
Sorry,
109.
I'm just trying to sort
Just
the
above
109, yes,
actions.
I'm on the page, I just can't find the wording.
Just above actions.
Sorry?
Just above actions.
Yes, I can't find it. Of analysis. So, I beg your pardon. So, moving that the parks team. Oh, it says we do not have the capacity available to maintain it.
I guess from the point of view, first of all, can be recorded against this that Councillor Pikitiora has signalled a conflict of interest here.
So I'd like to move that council
Push that,
look at creating capacity to maintain and facilitate the grounds for the new wellness, Taihape Wellbeing Initiative.
Yeah, we prepared to accept that. Can we just detail it, please?
Oh, sorry.
As it's part of this LTP, councillors, what I'd urge you to do is look at, you may wish to consider a potential cost to council that you would countenance. Because otherwise it is a very open-ended discussion here. Do we have any indication from anyone at council staff level around what sort of cost this could envisage?
I don't from the cost what it could envisage, but the submission did say from year 2 of the long-term plan, so potentially there would be opportunity to look into that further if the resolution included year 2.
I can give some more detail, Your Worship, if I may. The Parks team, the biggest problem for us in the Parks team is the number of people that we have to maintain all the open spaces that we have. So we got to remember every time there's a subdivision, there's more open spaces, and it all falls in the same team that has been consistently the same number for years and years. And we've run out of capacity. If we add more now, we would have to add more staff. So I would say, from a cost estimate perspective, definitely more staff, but potentially also more equipment. I'll do more work on that, but we just can't pick it up at the moment.
So perhaps a recommendation would be to refer this decision potentially to say that we will investigate and consider allowing for it in the annual plan.
In year 2 of the
Year
annual
2.
plan. I'd be happy with that.
Councillor Hero, again, you're in this position. If you have information that you can update us on, that would be appreciated, so we're not hovering in the dark.
Sorry. This is a substantial investment by Whangarei Regional Health Network and Mokoi Party Services of nearly $3 million. It is a substantial amount of money that's going into that community. The wellness hub, and of course that's having a doctor's surgery. At the end of the day, we've the presentation that came to council, I want to say last year, that was put forward to the councillors around the table by Jude McDonald outlaid where we were at. We said then, and we said then that regardless of whether or not the council just thinks that this is a good enough project for our council to be part of, why it wouldn't? I have no idea why you wouldn't think it was a good project. In the wellbeing space, we will be carrying on because we've got no choice. We have no choice but to keep working away with it. We are hopeful that we will have things up and running in our community by the beginning of next year. So we have our architect in place and the whole lot of hois that are happening. I want to say that they feel like weekly, if not daily, information that's coming back. It was never, there was an opportunity to work together. Collaboration is something that that this whole project is about. And why wouldn't our council be involved?
Thank you. I'm just aware we haven't got a seconder. We're starting to get into the merits of discussion here. I'm happy to second this. Councillor Duncan, did you hear?
Don't get it.
Kelly? Yes.
Um,
Duncan, go ahead, you have- beg your pardon?
Just back to the move.
I'm just asking first whether there's a question.
Yeah,
If you have a
so,
question.
I would really like to see the council supporting this, and so I was wondering
You're speaking to
if
the
staff
motion.
can't do, support the parks and reserves, are there other ways that they could support this project? That's a question to staff. If they can't do that, what other ways could they support this project? Because I am very keen for us to be seen supporting this project.
I think that would be happening with something that would potentially be developed.
That's fine.
But we don't know. I'm not sure they have an answer to that at the moment. Arno, do you have any comment?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I don't. I think it's a very broad suggestion. We can consider. I just wanted to ask Councillor Dalgety, is that outside of the parks activities or just in the parks activities? In other words, is there engineering services or building consent service or other things that staff might get involved in?
Anything. I just feel this is a huge change and step forward in the Taipi district. And for us not to be encouraging it to happen and doing our utmost, I just want to see us waving the flags and encouraging it to get there.
Now sort of speaking to emotion. Go, Galen, do you have any date before I go to you as the mover?
Just so one of the other requests in the submission was information about perhaps financial assistance in some form, whether it was advice or whatever, and that was the action that we've got there, that staff would meet and further discuss. Their submission was around that side of it.
Okay. And to Councillor Duncan, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, please. So I've been going to meetings around this initiative for probably 18 months, almost 2 years. And I can see it coming to fruition, and it's going to be so exciting for our for our little town. But actually, the people who have spoken around this are saying that it's actually one of the first cabs off the rank in the way health services are going forward. And we are incredibly lucky to have this facility with the hospital. And it is a big campus. One of our core services as a council is grounds. And I can see this just as perfect fit. I acknowledge that we are stretched at the moment. And that actually, I'd also like to say Parks and Reserves are doing a fantastic job. Really, everything's looking great. And if we have to buy another mower, maybe we could have a sausage sizzle. But I really would like to see us
Looking for
support this.
speakers. I have myself, I have Councillor Loudon and, okay, I'll go myself first. I'm speaking in favour. First of all, I applaud the courage to solve what is a major issue for Taihape. They are challenged in terms of distance to base hospitals. And they've got active committees that have been working on this for quite some time. And they have taken considerable risk and well down the track to be able to make this a reality. I would have to say, if again, I'll refer back to my comment about the 4 well-beings beings. This sits absolutely within that space. And so we legally have a responsibility. And if I look at well-being in Taihape, for instance, I look at health, I look at education, and this is the top of the road. And so for me, this is one of the best uses of funding that we could deliver in that space. Councillor Loudon.
I'm speaking for the motion. I'd like to congratulate local party services for their health initiatives. Fantastic. I would also, based on Mr. Bernardi's sort of take on funds availability, and this is a a case in point, and I say this very seriously, of developer contribution fees where developer contribution fees could go towards these items.
Sorry, just a point you can't. That was a legal requirement that wouldn't permit that.
Mr. Bernardi said that because of the development within the community, there are more parks and reserves, and it's putting stress on our resources. So I'd just like to make that point.
I just check, Arno, am I correct in what I've said?
Your Worship, you are absolutely correct. Developer contributions for infrastructure upgrades are very specific, and it does not cover operational costs after the fact. The best you could potentially do there is to have a dedicated targeted rate or something for people that pick up an extra, but it becomes too difficult, and it just gets absorbed into council's operational cost. So it just adds, the bottom line though is, because you could argue you have more ratepayers if you have more people living and more, so it all balances out. But the problem is the resource becomes stretched. There's more and more and more parks all the time, and that's really the problem. It's not paying for that, it's the resource gets stretched.
Are there any speakers against, or is this a question?
No, well, it's kind of a speak against, but kind of a question. So I don't know if you're going to permit me this one, but
Well, it depends. Are you going to vote against effectively? If you're going to end up voting for this and use it as an excuse, I won't accept that.
no, I'm on the grounds that I am going to vote against it because it's not quite right. So I will vote against it, and therefore I'll exercise the right to speak against it.
Yeah.
Nobody is questioning the great work of Mokai Patea Services and the Wellness Project. This is simply about our capacity for the Parks and Reserves team. My question that I have, if you want to call it a question as such, is this in the right space? Are we not looking at this from the right point of view in the fact that we have a capacity to deliver issue? Isn't that something that we should be sitting at the council area, possibly through assets and infrastructure, and saying, well, are we a bit stretched there? Is this not an annual plan discussion for next year to say, how are we placed? How are we going to deliver this? Are we short? Do we need a staff member? Do we need have we got an issue with capacity now? Are we going to add to that capacity as being an issue now? Is this in the right space to have that conversation? I don't think it's in the right space.
Stop you there.
So I'm voting against it.
This is about referring to a submission. In terms of the council has the right to make decisions around what we deliver. That is your right, that is your position. Subsequently to those decisions, council and an operational arm comes back and says, here are the consequences of your decision. That's where your discussion was. Any other speakers against? Go back, write a reply.
Just that I'd like to say that's exactly what I see that recommendation is doing, is asking that we look at it.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried.
You didn't.
I'm sure that you were doing that to avoid a growling. Shannon, back with you, because that takes us next.
So there are further topics within that. Actually, you'd like to put them through, otherwise we can go on to the next one.
So this is under the wellness.
37.
37. This is making the district more welcoming. Anything there? Anything there? No. Moving on. Topic 38, marketing the district. There's the submission 410, Rod and Anna Hardy. No. Moving on. Topic 39.
Okay.
Where?
Sorry, Councillor.
On marketing the district, if Rod and Anna Hardy have brought this up, they don't seem to know what's going on with marketing the district. Are people aware of how the district is marketed?
What specifically is the submitter looking for here? There's no budget attachment, there's no liaison with, there's just wanting a stronger marketing campaign. Is that my understanding?
Well, firstly, a couple of years ago, I saw a Rangitikei promotional video on the council website, which was extremely good, but I've never seen it anywhere else. I've never seen it pushed. I drive into the district myself, and different access points, there's different signs from different generations that have never changed. There never seems to be a consistent message out there.
And in principle, I'm with you. There's been a number of these videos that have been produced at significant cost, and the usage of them has been minimal. And so I have a degree of sympathy with you and the submitter here. But I'm not sure that that we've got a pathway here to specifically say how you're going to solve it. Ellen, sorry.
Sorry, if I could just say that we are doing some work in this space, like with the destination management plan in the advisory group. And certainly I think the response to the submitter will outline that work, but also, yes, we take on board that there needs to be more communication around that.
Yes.
Well, I thought I was part of that.
Yes.
Advisory group, I haven't even been.
Yeah.
Mm.
So can that be part of the response and subsequently accountable action back to the submitter? Staff, will you look to adjust the response? Thank you. Moving on to community events. Submitter 359 wants the Harvest Festival moved back and suggests the council backs it more, but it doesn't quite say exactly what degree. Council puts a fair degree of effort into this. So perhaps in response to this, staff outline exactly what support we give to that festival. And both the capital and operating costs. As part of capital, we put power into that site on a permanent basis, which was fairly expensive. So just council, topic 40, antenatal classes. I know very little about this, but somebody else may. Anything there?
Right. Where my eldest is now 29, and I had antenatal classes in Martin, and it would have been challenging going further afield. So whether it's under our regime, I'm not sure, but certainly I think it's a service that would be great to offer.
So this is about portraying what we currently do anyway, isn't it?
Yes.
So that the officer analysis is fine in my case.
Okay.
Topic 41, health services for Huntable. Councillor Lambert.
I can just speak briefly on this. Stewart Street Surgery used to send a doctor to Huntable half a day a week. This is a few years ago now, but then they stopped because it got down to the point they either had one or no patients. And as is noted here, most people tend to be a doctor in Martin, Bulls, Whanganui or Taiapi. But yeah, maybe I'd like to see the transport issue discussed to see if there is a need for people to maybe be able to access it.
So there's a discussion line and within the community that could be referred to the community committee in Huntable.
Yeah.
Can we refer it back there?
Yeah, no, good idea.
Thank you.
Just add to that, since the loss of the doctor, which is some years ago now, a local nurse gave, would open up rooms and take blood pressures and do some of that work that was within her realm. That was a great service to have locally. I don't, it does, she's since retired and it hasn't been able to be kept going.
I will stop at 3 for a break. Topic 43, community places. Topic 44, emergency management. This is one submitter, 347, who has appeared in front of you on 2 occasions. No, move on. Topic, what was it, 45, community and leisure asset management. Submissions within Sheridan. Anything there you wish to proceed with? You're happy with the response? Topic 46, Broadway and High Street buildings. Anything there? Can we just scroll the screen by the way? Please?
No, it's not on there.
No, but I'm just saying,
Okay.
what's coming up. No. Topic 47, this is submission, Nigel Belsham, business support and others. Internal incenting costs, all those sorts of things are up for discussion anyway. Topic 48, town centre services. No, please tell me if I'm going too fast. No. Topic 49, Bulls development. This is KPA properties. This is quite a specific one around a developer's situation. I have spent some time looking at the officer analysis of this. And personally, I'm happy with that. But this is a discussion between 2 commercial entities, them and councils. Moving on. Topic 50, sorry, Councillor Duncan.
My question around this really is that has it raised any concerns that it's the communication that's been the problem? Because I see it's almost like I'm not questioning the validity of either, because I don't know the situation, but it seems that there is a disconnect. And perhaps it's pointing to the communications once again.
Arno, do you wish to comment? Through my chief executive? Sorry.
Well, Arno, you can go.
It is a bit, thank you for the opportunity. It's a bit difficult for me over here. I don't have information in front of me. So I think this one I would probably want to pass on to Kevin first if I can. And I'll try and catch up.
This is one that we have been in discussion. It's not likely that there's no issues. It's at a time where subdivision at the extent of this one is difficult because it questions the economy of doing it, which puts more pressure on to go around. So there are some fundamental changes that have been proposed, which this subdivider is working their way through. So yeah, there has been a lot of communications. Whether everybody wants to accept everybody's point of view is a different matter.
Thank you.
Yeah, on this one, accepted the answers in here and read the letter that KPA Properties did, but to me, it's just generic feedback from people that do developments in the Rangitikei. Is sometimes it's just a real pain, and that No,
I'm just
that displeases
warning,
me as a councillor that that's the perception out there. This is one example and it's a submitter. That's why I'm talking to this one, but hopefully it's not highlighting a broader problem.
Make it
I think
generic.
we stop there. If there are issues relating to staff, those need to be discussed directly with the chief executive.
I would make a generic comment though, is the district plan review is a key component of this. And so what you find is towards the end of an existing plan, those areas that are zoned residential come under scrutiny by developers that are struggling to find land. And they're concentrating on land which maybe should never have been zoned if you took today residential. So you're then working from a parameters of trying to work with some of those developers to get some outcome that is a compromise but acceptable. Whereas I think if the review goes ahead, a number of those lands will be taken off in more appropriate residential land zones. It's just the way things happen. And I think you'll find throughout the country, when you come to the end of a bit of a boom, the places, the land that is now being looked at is probably, this is only generically, but probably not the most appropriate land to be developed. And that comes with consequences.
Like a park that.
Yeah.
What I'll do now is we'll adjourn. We've got the last session should be I guess should take probably 3/4 an hour at most. This is my guess. However, so if we adjourn now and start again at 3:15, it's time for people to have a break and go, Line, please. We are
Yep.
not too far away. So which one did we've done? We are on topic 50, climate change. I'm turning the page slowly. Go to topic 51. Mary Ward's the submission, Gregory Smith. Nothing there. Good. Topic 52. The long-term plan process. There's no recommendation there. Anything from you councillors? No.
Oh, I'm just
Go for it.
interested in comment why we decided not to do any online or councillors online or discussion of the LTP online specifically, as we did last time.
I leave that to you.
We did discuss it, and we felt that the online engagement was, I can't remember the reasoning around not having an open one. We were going to do some key topic ones with the mayor, but I think that got ran out of time. We didn't do the Facebook online, is that what you mean?
Yeah, sorry, yes.
Yes, and I think we did ask council that, and they said that they were happy not to do it this time. We can look at it next time again if you want.
Councillor Loudon.
I was just noting submitter 461 says there's a word limit on the online form. Is there any reason for the word limit when you want to have consultation?
I can probably answer that. No, that's just what the form comes standard. So we would specifically note to increase that the next time. That's the default.
Thank you.
Councillor Duncan.
I have a question. The submitter says that our open period for submissions is shorter, significantly shorter than other councils. That wasn't my impression. Can you answer that one?
It's certainly, we're guided by legislation with the amount of time, so we might even have been a few days over the minimum amount of time that you're allowed, so no.
Councillor Maughan.
I don't know if I've jumped ahead to fly tipping.
I'll let you fly tip. Where are you going to tip?
I'll go fishing down the Rangitikei River. O90 has come up a couple of times, and it has been a perennial or ongoing problem.
Yeah.
And I know the community up there has submitted a couple of times on the antisocial behaviour, the dumping, is there anything we can really do about it?
You're right. The O91 has been a black mark on our district and our profile from roads, but the effect on some of the properties at the end of Makahini Lane is profound. There were 2 or 3 individual properties that created these issues. They used the road as a dumping site and would routinely say that vehicle and that rubbish does not belong to me. So getting clarity around it. So I have spoken to individual property owners there. I know staff have been very active in doing the same. And on at least a couple of occasions that I know of, council has borne the cost of a road cleanup because we could not take it back. And one property was held accountable at one stage. So actively council taking this seriously and using every avenue that we can in terms of.
And we've had a vacancy for that compliance role for a little while. I'm not sure if it's been filled yet. And so hoping to get that role filled, which does help in this scenario.
But I would say, please, as councillors, not particularly referring to this, but councillors, please, you need to be very careful around going to an individual property that's causing a disturbance and be aware of your own safety, etc. So please don't just jump in and say, this problem is, I've been reported a problem in a street. I'm gonna go and see them. You expose yourself to risk. Councillor Hero, then Councillor Lambert. Councillor Hero.
Sorry, and I've forgotten, section 3, the submission, and one of the submissions, and I feel like it was to do with the ONID, people, there's a suggestion that rates weren't being paid, is that correct?
That rates haven't been paid.
I'm just, sorry.
There was one particular property that I can't go into because the, sensitivities around that, where there was a rating position. But those are actively, I would say those are actively followed up by staff.
Thank you.
Councillor Lambert.
Hi, just on this O90 thing, I'm surprised there's been no reports of the uncontrolled dogs, whether the submitters could be encouraged to report wandering dogs or illegal tiny homes.
There's a level of intimidation here as well. Councillor Duncan, Councillor Loudon, Councillor Duncan.
I'm just reconsidering what I was thinking then, just as part of the feedback to the submissions. I wonder if it would be helpful to suggest that that a new compliance officer is going to be established, but then I wonder how helpful that would be. But I mean, they're looking for
Position needs-
support and,
It's an operational matter, but the position obviously needs filling.
yeah, okay.
Councillor Loudon.
Submitter 301 says that it considers, or they consider that the council does not care about ONIT, would suggest that council possibly hasn't communicated with this community well on these issues. Does council staff talk to ONIT residents who have concerns about what they can do, what they are doing, and
The only comment I can make is that we haven't received any complaints. It doesn't look like, so whether that, we should initiate that, but definitely it doesn't appear it's coming the other way.
So bear in mind the range of issues here. First of all, the issues have been rubbish on private property. Council has little discretion. There have been issues around houses and their consenting. That's been dealt with at a staffing level. There's been issues of ONIT, the old road. And boy, there's been a lot of discussion with a number of parties. But some people in that community are nervous around reporting things. It's sad, but that's reality. But staff have been, in my opinion, proactive, and they've been very, very
good. Thank you.
Councillor Duncan, Councillor Dalgety.
So many of these ONIT submitters were at our ONIT meeting, which unfortunately the mayor was unable to attend. And I guess the concern is these are not new problems, they're old problems that they feel they've brought to council attention before, and there's been no progress made in their opinion. Can I just correct on page 119? It's Mr. Parks's submission was very hard to read. It says, but it should read the state of the area opposite the pub, not the pools.
For those of you who know the state highway there was an engineering company that burned down, and the leftovers and twisted steel and everything is still there. That does not pose a health and safety risk. It doesn't pose a fire risk. That is up to the property owner's discretion as to how they deal with their property. But that's the reference to that property. The tiny homes on small sections without consent, I've raised that as that is an issue with the consenting team. You know, there are I think two properties there with relocated homes. One of them looked at do some work around their section and asked to see me, and there weren't any consents. Anyway, I think
Could I ask a question in this sphere? Quite a few of these things, like the rubbish on private properties, we can't do anything with it because it's not in our jurisdiction. But are there any bylaws we have ability to enact that, was that hitting the one up for session?
there are a couple of areas that staff would act on. One is if there is a fire risk. And two, the other is under, for instance, if it could absolutely be demonstrated that there was a rat infestation or something as that's public health.
Is there any bylaws we can enact that aren't in the our that we don't have going now, but that we should look at?
There's nothing else we can do other than what the mayor has outlined.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Duncan.
Just from the notes from the ONIT long-term plan meeting that was held on the 5th of March, there were two people at that meeting who I have the names of that actually did say that rubbish on the side of the roads is a problem. And both of them said it's a real problem, and one person says it's a terrible quote. So I guess that does bring up that may need to be looked at again.
Okay, so you're happy with the staff responses there? Moving on to 54, infrastructure strategy and council activities. This person, Justin Adams, 312, who's submitted here. And we welcome him, etc. And another couple of submissions. Anything there that you wish to? There's no recommendation there from officers. No, I'll move on. Topic 55. The submitted around central government. No, move on. And topic 56, the Mofonga dam release. This is concerning about the release of water during the summer months. This would be a resource consent condition around the need for flushing and those sorts of things. They would be actively controlled by in effect by legislation, by condition. Topic 57, weather modification. Again, this is seed funding of clouds, etc. Heard the submission and tie happy.
I must say, every jet that's flown over, even a contrail, I've been having a good look at things, and they do vary in rigidity. Just a note. Quite my interest. Yeah.
Thank you. I will refer to you as the oracle.
Must be having.
You can be the spokesperson. We're quite happy for somebody else taking that role. Moving on, district management plan, submission, Karen Bates. Anything there? No. Thank you. 59, gender equity. This comes out of submission Greta Mills, and noting that she has just come back from the gender equity conference in Zurich or somewhere.
New York.
Yeah.
No. I would have to say, actually, I haven't seen the analysis of gender equity in terms of us as an organisation, but I would have to say that probably not an issue. Probably have a fair representation of. Do you know the figures?
We haven't got the figure, but the distribution's fairly even across roles and levels.
Yeah, thank you. Where are we up to? 60 comments of support. They're always nice.
Should spend some time on this one.
And Ben gets the accolades. Moving on, 61 sediments and nutrients in waterways. Anything there? No. 62, and Lynn Sheridan again, summary of significance and engagement policy. Remember, there was quite a detailed submission around Wanganui's position from a staff member in Wanganui. That I spent some time looking at that and reading it. I didn't see an issue that we had. Anything from anybody there? No. Right, that effectively, that's that document. But you need to go back to the order papers now, and my read of this takes us back to recommendation 4. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Recommendation 4 is with regard to officers' comments made in response to submissions as listed in the attachment. Council has considered the officer comments and accepts them with amendments or without amendments. And they will be council's response to submitters. We have suggested some amendments as we've gone through. Councillor Wilson, do you wish to move?
I do wish to move, but I was just hoping that those amendments had been picked up. I'm assuming that they had.
Yeah, we've been noting
They-
the whole way
so
through.
that would therefore mean with amendments as noted.
If you're looking for a seconder to that, councillor Hero, are you seconding?
Yeah.
Do you wish to speak at length to your?
No, your worship, I don't. In reference to the time.
Any other speakers to this? No, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Perhaps before we go further and close meetings, etc.
No, I'm still
Yeah, I
gonna go
know.
through.
But
7, 8, 9.
yeah, I'll deal with that first.
7.2, the development contributions policy.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm jumping the gun.
Yeah.
Would somebody like to receive the report? Thank you, councillor Ratoa. Are you moving with seats?
Yes.
Seconded, councillor Duncan. Those in favour, those against, carried. Thank you. Next recommendation. Council reconsiders the need for a full development contributions policy in 2026 as part of the development of the 2026, the long-term plan. You wish to take us through this, Katrina?
Yes, certainly. I can give you a brief overview. So everyone will be aware that we consulted on a range of documents simultaneous to the long-term plan. Those are the reports you're about to receive now. This one was our draft development contributions policy. We received 4 submissions on that policy, and then also 2 submitters provided comments in their long-term plan submissions, which were analysed in this report. I'll take the summary of submissions and officer comment largely as read and just give you a bit of a summary from our officer recommendation perspective. We have recommended that this item's reconsidered through the next long-term plan process. Our current approach in terms of doing developer agreements has been working for us in the past. It's quite a flexible approach for us to be able to assess potential impacts and achieve an outcome on a case-by-case basis.
And to have a development contributions policy is a really in-depth process. And we don't currently have the capital costs sitting in our long-term plan document to form the basis of a development contributions policy, which you're only able to charge for a growth portion of any capital project. It's very, very tightly regulated. So the recommendation is to reconsider it for the next long-term plan.
I'll take questions around this first. I'm looking at my notes. I've questioned around definition of a developer. And this is aimed at a bigger development, but how does this align with an individual property? So for instance, if somebody owns a property with a very large tennis court, they're not under our definitions regarded as a developer.
Do they have a large property that they're looking at subdividing into many, many lots?
This is where it starts to get cloudy, I think. So what I would like to understand is the clear definition of when, at what trigger level is in effect.
Katrina, I can potentially help out if I may.
Yeah.
Any infill subdivisions that goes from one lot to two or maybe three is what you most commonly find, not just in our district, but in most districts. And those for us and the way our towns have been set up will not cause a problem. It won't cause capacity issues into the future. It's really the larger developments, and that's one of the biggest factors that we considered. The larger ones, so let's say 20 or more properties, there are very few of them. And those are the ones that we pay more attention to. So what happens between the infrastructure activities and the planning activities, the moment it's more than your normal infill subdivision, it'll come to us and we'll have a more detailed look at it.
Yeah, I guess what I'm signaling Arno there is just that we may need to clearly define those parameters.
I think it's a fair position, Your Worship. You know, if we have a cut-off number, you know, if we create 5 lots or more, whatever the number might be, then it should be considered for that.
Okay.
I think, yeah. So I think that's a valid suggestion.
Councillor Wilson.
I'm looking to move recommendation 2.
And that you would like to,
Yes.
including the and.
Sorry, and the development policy be adopted, yes. And I will speak to it.
Look, I'm happy for recommendation to be there, but just first of all, any questions, then I'll come back to you. Councillor Duncan.
I just see those things as still being separate. Reconsiders the need. But does that necessarily mean that then it has to be, policy has to be adopted? Surely in the reconsidering we might, am I missing the point?
Come back to you.
Well, the developing contribution policy is in front of you, which needs adopting, and then they're going to reconsider it in whole, go back and review it in 2026. So we've still got something, in existence.
So they are distinct in that sense. Question?
Not really a question.
In that case, I'll go to, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I do. I think the recommendation 2 actually covers this issue quite well, because already we've only just got onto this subject today after a long day, and I've heard 2 or 3 different questions and misunderstandings on a lot of matters. For example, what is a development equal? What does it look like? We don't know the answer to that. So also, what do development contributions fees actually go to? And how can they be charged? And how can they be justified? So all of these are questions that have come out just from today. So the most logical thing for me is to support recommendation 2 that says that council considers the need for a full development contribution policy in 26 as part of the development of the 27 long-term plan, And I think the CE is exactly correct. We have consulted on the development contribution policy and that does need to be adopted. So I think that pretty much covers it.
Arno, did you have something else you wanted to say?
No, I think that really covers it well.
Okay, other speakers, please, councillor. Oh, no, sorry, who's seconding it?
I thought you did.
I am happy to second that.
Okay, councillor Dalgety seconding. Any other speakers? No, put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried, thank you. 7.3, the analysis of submissions and adoption of the significant engagement policy. Could somebody receive the report, please? Councillor Morn, Councillor Lambert, those in favour? Those against? Carried. Would somebody like to move with or without amendment?
I'll move, without amendment.
Looking for a seconder to that? Councillor Duncan seconding it. You wish to speak to it?
Only to say that we spent quite a bit of time on this and have been through it, and had submissions on it, and, yeah, I think it's all good to go.
Any other speakers to it? Councillor.
I'd like to once again say that this is a fine example of the work that staff have done and thank them. It's absolutely incredible.
A red sticker. Put it to the
Gold
vote.
star.
A nice sticker. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Should have said gold sticker. Gold sticker. 7.4, the end of the day. Analysis of submissions on the rates remission policy. Would somebody like to receive the reports? Councillor, are you wishing to move receipt?
Yes.
Looking for a second to that, Councillor Dalgety. Somebody want to move? Councillor, are you prepared to move? That it be adopted, seconding, Chair of Finance, quite appropriate. We wish to speak to it, Councillor.
Along the lines of Councillor Morns, we've done a lot of work in this area, and again, it's a credit to the staff putting up with our explaining the details to us, and I'm happy at the position we are.
Any other speakers? Otherwise, I'll put it to a vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Analysis of submissions and the adoption of the revenue and financing policy. Could somebody move the receipt of the report? Thank you, Councillor Dalgety. Councillor Lambert. Would somebody like to move the adoptions? Councillor Dalgety, Councillor Duncan seconding.
With additions, largely cosmetic enhancements to the policy. Sorry, as referred to in 5.1.
Yeah, I should go back 5.1.
Yeah, it's been incorporated into the version you're adopting.
Yes, happy to second.
Are you happy now?
Yes, happy now.
Councillor Dalgety, did you want to speak to it?
As per previous movers, thank you very much to staff for your hard work and explanation.
Any speakers? Put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. 7.6. This is the analysis of submissions and the adoption of proposed scheduled fees and charges. Somebody like to move the receipt of the report? Thank you, Councillor Hebra moving, Councillor Charlin seconding. Would somebody like to move the adoption? Thank you, Councillor Wong moving. Yeah, get that?
Councillor.
Seconding. Councillor Wong, do you wish to speak to it?
So we have done a lot of work on this, but I'm happy with our position, so thank you, staff.
Put it to, can I put it straight to a vote? fees and charges, those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now, what I was going to do before, when we just the end of submission process, and those recommendations, could you outline us the process going forward towards adoption as to where our timeframes and what we have now still have to do?
So now we will effectively produce the final LTP. Dave will do some work on the numbers, following all the deliberations today. And we are still working through our audit process. Because of the change in our audit procedure this year, we're still working with them on that. If there's no issues from their point of view, we do have a meeting on June, the middle of June, just to adopt the LTP. If there are issues that we need to keep working with audit on, which we're not expecting, we've still got the fallback position at the end of June to adopt it, but you will see the final LTP for adoption by the end of June, which is the statutory timeframe, unless there's significant red flags from audit. In recent meeting with them, they haven't raised anything of major concern. There's still likely to be an emphasis in matter for those that have heard of that before in terms of capital doability and Three Waters, but pretty much every council will be getting those emphasis in matter just because there's so much uncertainty in the Three Waters space. So that's the process from here.
Except we've got a couple of minor matters still to clear and finalise as part of the process.
We'll bring those back as part of that adoption.
Okay. Any questions around process from here? Councillor Duncan.
I just, it was very interesting to me when Sam and Susan came and spoke to us. I was on Zoom, but they said it at the Zone 3 meeting too. So LGNZ, I think you all know who I'm talking about. They both mentioned, and particularly Sam said it again, that a lot of councils have not been able to go through this process in the timeframe, and central government has given leeway for that to happen. So I think extra congratulations should go to the team because you've managed to do it, and it's a biggie.
There's special legislation around that, especially for those councils affected by the cyclone. But we are running ahead of our contemporaries and neighbours. Before we close, again, a huge thank you to staff. A huge thank you to the number of people who submitted. But as councillors, I think you've acquitted yourself well in terms of engagement with your communities. The number of people that have been part of those processes has been great. So thank you very much.
I think particularly with the Three Waters confusion that's added to add especially for Arno and Dave and a few things. And I just thank you, Mr. Mayor, because you've kept us on our toes and watched us through. So
Yes.
Thank you. The Three Waters one, just before we close off, come off here. Usually there's a lot of water to flow under the bridge here. Right? We are in a difficult space like every other council. But I would say that our council's planning and decision to be made in charge of our own destiny was a very prudent decision that was made at that time. Those councils that decided to say, well, the government will deal with it, we don't have to worry about it, and now in a position that is unenviable, to say the very least. So I congratulate you as councillors for getting into that space. Councillor Hero.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment before we finish up today. And the comment is to those, the submitters that have had made that don't necessarily see this council as being, making decisions that have been positive decisions. And there has been a number of things that have come through in the submissions. Where it's been quite derogatory, to be honest. And it's been a hard thing as a councillor to have to read some of the feedback that you get from people. When people say things like, all we do is pat ourselves on the back. But I want to say that for anybody that's out there that's listening, there's an opportunity every 3 years to put your hat in the ring. And I've said this many times over the years as being a councillor. And I want to say that again, but I also want to say that I'm really proud of our staff because that's been a huge job. And when people sit outside of a process and they don't actually understand all of the work that goes into it, and they've got the solutions to everything, but actually until you get inside of it, you realise where all of the intricacies and the complexities come within it. So it's a huge, I feel that we're lucky that we have got staff, and we don't all necessarily always agree with each other, but at the end of the day, everyone keeps in their heart, we're trying to do the best thing for our people, and that's all people. That's all people in the rangiteke, our residents and our ratepayers. And I just feel that, yeah, it just blows my mind, to be honest, some of the things that people can say when they don't know the workloads of everybody that's around the table. So that's just my comment. Kia ora.
Right, thank you. I'll close the meeting at 10:04. Thank you, Linesman. Thank you, Ball Boys. New game next time.
Carol Roll, correct.
Council meeting,